At our anniversary dinner, he announced his mom was moving in. So I unwrapped a surprise of my own. My name is Noelle Everett, and at 32, I never thought our 7th wedding anniversary would turn into the night I'd finally reveal the secret I'd been keeping for 8 months. We were seated at Chez Laurent, the same upscale restaurant where Grayson had proposed, when he casually dropped his bombshell between the appetizer and main course. "Oh, by the way, honey, Mom's moving in with us next week. I already converted the home office for her." The crystal wine glass trembled in my hand as I processed his words, but what he didn't expect was my calm smile as I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope. "That's interesting timing, Grayson. I have a surprise for you, too." Before I tell you what was in that envelope, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe because this story gets wild, and trust me, you'll want to hear how I turn the tables on both of them. I've always been the type of woman who notices details. As a forensic accountant, my job is literally to follow money trails and uncover financial deceptions. That skill for detecting inconsistencies served me well in my professional life, but I never imagined I'd need to use it in my own marriage. Looking back now, the signs were always there. I just chose to ignore them because I loved Grayson and trusted him completely. We met 9 years ago at a charity auction where my firm was donating services. Grayson was there representing his construction company, bidding on items to support the local children's hospital. He caught my attention not because of his rugged good looks or his successful business, but because of how genuinely he seemed to care about the cause. When he won a weekend getaway package and immediately donated it back for re-auction, I knew there was something special about him. Our courtship was a whirlwind romance. Grayson was attentive, romantic, and seemed to understand my drive for independence and career success. He supported my long hours during tax season, celebrated my promotions, and never made me feel guilty for being ambitious. His mother, Patricia Thornton Wells, seemed pleasant enough during our initial meetings, a well-dressed widow from old money who volunteer-chaired several charitable organizations and lived in the family estate that had been in the Thornton family for 3 generations. But there were subtle warning signs even then. Patricia had a way of making backhanded compliments that left me questioning whether I'd been insulted or praised. "Oh, Noelle, you're so dedicated to your little accounting job," she'd say with a patronizing smile. "It's refreshing to see young women keeping themselves busy with careers before they settle down to what really matters." When I'd correct her that I was a forensic accountant, not a bookkeeper, she'd wave dismissively. "Numbers are numbers, dear." The red flags became more apparent after Grayson and I married. Patricia had opinions about everything: our home decor, my cooking, even our vacation choices. The Thornton men have always preferred mountain retreats to beach resorts. She'd inform me when I'd suggest a tropical getaway. "It's more refined." Grayson would just shrug and say, "Mom knows what she's talking about. The mountains sound nice too." What bothered me most was how Grayson never corrected his mother's constant mispronunciation of my name. She insisted on calling me Ellen, despite being corrected multiple times. When I brought this up to Grayson, he said, "She's old-fashioned, Noelle. Pick your battles." But it wasn't about being old-fashioned, it was about respect, and the deliberate mispronunciation felt like a power play. The financial discrepancies began about a year ago. As someone who managed our household budget with the same precision I applied to corporate audits, I noticed unusual expenses appearing on our joint credit card statements. $500 at a high-end department store here, $800 at an antique shop there. Always during times when I was traveling for work. When I asked Grayson about these charges, he had reasonable explanations. "Mom needed help with some purchases." Or, "I picked up something for the house while you were gone." But my forensic instincts were pinging. The amounts were too consistent, too frequent, and the timing was always when I was away. So I did what any good forensic accountant would do. I started keeping detailed records. I photographed credit card statements, tracked expenses, and began paying closer attention to the financial patterns in our marriage. What I discovered over the next few months made my blood run cold. Grayson wasn't just helping his mother with occasional purchases, he was systematically funding her lifestyle to the tune of nearly $3,000 per month. Designer clothes, expensive spa treatments, luxury car payments, even what appeared to be mortgage payments on a property I'd never heard of. All of this was coming out of our joint accounts, money that I contributed to equally, but had never consented to spending this way. The most damning discovery came 6 months ago when I found a bank statement that had been delivered to our house. By mistake, it was addressed to Patricia Thornton Wells, but sent to our address. Curious and increasingly suspicious, I opened it. What I found inside changed everything. Patricia wasn't the wealthy widow she pretended to be. The family estate she lived in was mortgaged to the hilt, and she was 3 months behind on payments. Her bank account showed a pattern of overdrafts and desperate transfers from multiple credit cards. The woman who looked down on my little accounting job was drowning in debt and had been using my husband and, by extension, my money to maintain her facade of wealth. But the real kicker was a letter from a financial advisor discussing Patricia's retirement planning. According to the correspondence, she had been planning to sell her house and move in with Grayson and me for over a year. The advisor referred to this as the next phase of the financial strategy we discussed, and mentioned how she could maintain her lifestyle while reducing overhead expenses by living with family. I sat in my home office that night, staring at the evidence spread across my desk, feeling like the biggest fool in the world. My mother-in-law wasn't just financially dependent on us, she had orchestrated this entire situation, and Grayson, my supposedly honest and straightforward husband, had been lying to me for months, if not years. That's when I decided to conduct a full forensic audit of our finances. What I found made the initial discoveries look like petty cash discrepancies. Over the past 3 years, Grayson had been funneling money to his mother in increasingly creative ways. There were business loans that were never repaid, investments in properties that didn't exist, and emergency expenses that seemed to occur with suspicious regularity. In total, he had diverted nearly $85,000 of our marital assets to support his mother's lifestyle without my knowledge or consent. But the most infuriating part wasn't the money, it was the betrayal of trust. Every time I'd suggested we start saving for a house upgrade, Grayson would say we needed to be more conservative with our spending. When I wanted to invest in rental properties, he'd claim we didn't have enough liquid capital. Meanwhile, he was secretly financing his mother's champagne lifestyle while asking me to drink beer. I spent the next 2 months documenting everything, creating a paper trail that would make any prosecutor jealous. Bank statements, credit card records, property transfers, loan documents. I built an airtight case that proved exactly how much money had been diverted and when. But I didn't confront Grayson immediately. Instead, I started planning my own surprise. Using my professional connections, I consulted with a divorce attorney specialized in financial fraud within marriages. I learned about asset protection, hidden accounts, and how to safeguard my own financial interests. I opened a separate checking account and began redirecting my paycheck deposits, claiming I was switching to a credit union for better rates. I also started liquidating some of my personal investments, creating my own safety net. But the most satisfying part of my plan involved Patricia herself. Remember that property she was receiving mortgage assistance for? I did some digging and discovered it was a vacation condo she'd purchased as an investment property but couldn't afford to maintain. The mortgage was in default, and the bank was preparing foreclosure proceedings. Patricia had been using our money to make payments, but it wasn't enough to catch up on the arrears. So I made the bank an offer they couldn't refuse. Using my own savings and a loan secured against my 401k, I purchased Patricia's debt from the bank at a significant discount. In the world of financial distress, This is called debt acquisition, and it's perfectly legal. What it meant was that I now owned Patricia's mortgage, and she owed the money to me instead of the bank. The beautiful irony was that Patricia had no idea her debt had been sold. She was still making payments to the bank, which were being forwarded to me as the new creditor. I was literally profiting from the money Grayson was giving her to pay what she thought was her original mortgage. But I wasn't done yet. 3 months ago, I hired a private investigator to document Patricia's actual lifestyle versus what she claimed she could afford. The photos were spectacular designer shopping sprees, expensive lunches at country clubs, weekly spa appointments, all funded by money that should have been going toward our future. The investigator also discovered that Patricia had been telling her friends that she was helping out Grayson and me financially, claiming she was the generous benefactor in our relationship. Armed with all this evidence, I consulted with my attorney again and prepared what we called the reckoning package. It included a complete financial audit of the last 3 years, documentation of the unauthorized transfers, proof of the debt acquisition, and a very clear ultimatum. Meanwhile, Grayson remained completely oblivious to my investigation. He'd gotten so comfortable with his deception that he barely tried to hide the financial irregularities anymore. Just last month, I found a thank you note from Patricia for the emergency assistance with the property taxes on a property I didn't even know she owned. The anniversary dinner was Grayson's idea, and he chose Chez Laurent specifically for its sentimental value. "I want to recreate the magic of our engagement," he said, making reservations at the same corner table where he'd proposed 7 years earlier. I played along, even buying a new dress for the occasion, knowing this night would indeed be memorable, just not in the way he expected. We started the evening like any other romantic dinner. Grayson was charming and attentive, asking about my day and sharing stories about his latest construction projects. He ordered wine and reminisced about our early days together. For a moment, I almost felt guilty about what I was planning to do. Almost. "You know," he said, cutting into his steak, "I've been thinking about our future a lot lately, about the next chapter in our lives." My stomach tensed, sensing what was coming. "And I've made a decision that I think will be really good for our family." "Oh?" I said, taking a sip of wine to steady my nerves. "Mom's been struggling with that big house all by herself," he continued, not meeting my eyes. "The maintenance, the loneliness, all of it. So, I've arranged for her to move in with us. I already started converting your home office into a bedroom for her. She'll be moving in next week." The casualness of his announcement was breathtaking. 7 years of marriage, and he was informing me of a major life change the way someone might mention they'd changed the oil in the car. No discussion, no consultation, just a unilateral decision that would fundamentally alter our living situation. "That's interesting timing," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I have a surprise for you too." I reached into my purse and pulled out the manila envelope I'd been carrying for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Grayson looked confused as I placed it on the table between us, right next to the anniversary roses he'd ordered. "What's this?" he asked, his brow furrowing. "Open it," I said simply. Grayson unsealed the envelope and pulled out the top document, a complete financial audit of our marriage. His face went pale as he recognized bank statements, credit card records, and loan documents. His hands actually shook as he flipped through page after page of evidence. "Noelle, I can explain," he started, but I held up my hand. "Please, let me finish. You said Mom was struggling with her big house, but what you didn't mention is that she's been struggling with the mortgage payments on that house for 3 years, or that she also owns a vacation condo that's been in foreclosure proceedings, or that you've been using our money, my money, to fund her lifestyle to the tune of nearly $90,000. Grayson's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Other diners were starting to glance our way, but I didn't care. This conversation was 3 years overdue. Keep looking, I instructed, pointing to the envelope. The next document is particularly interesting. He pulled out a deed transfer document, and his confusion deepened. I don't understand what this is. That's the deed to your mother's vacation condo, I explained calmly. The one she couldn't afford to keep. The bank was about to foreclose, so I bought the debt. I now own the mortgage on Patricia's investment property. She's been making payments to me for the last 3 months without even knowing it. The color drained completely from Grayson's face. You can't be serious. Oh, but there's more. I gestured toward the envelope again. The next item is a demand letter from my attorney. It turns out that using marital assets without spousal consent for non-household expenses constitutes financial fraud in this state. The statute of limitations is 7 years, which means I can recover every penny you've given your mother, plus interest and legal fees. Grayson sat in stunned silence, the papers scattered across the table like evidence in a courtroom. The romantic anniversary dinner had transformed into a deposition. Noelle, please let me explain. Mom was desperate. No, Grayson, I interrupted. You were desperate. Desperate to maintain your image as the devoted son, even if it meant betraying your wife. Your mother wasn't desperate, she was entitled. She felt entitled to maintain a lifestyle she couldn't afford using money that wasn't hers. I leaned forward, lowering my voice to ensure our conversation remained private despite its intensity. Do you know what the most insulting part of all this is? Every time I suggested we invest in our future, a bigger house, rental properties, retirement planning, you told me we needed to be conservative with our money. Meanwhile, you were literally throwing thousands of dollars at your mother's shopping habits and mortgage payments. She's my mother, he said weakly, as if that explained everything. And I'm your wife, I countered. Or at least I was until tonight. There's one more document in that envelope. Grayson's hands trembled as he pulled out the final paper divorce papers, already filed with the court. I've been sleeping in the guest room for 2 weeks, Grayson. You just didn't notice because you've been so busy planning your mother's move-in without consulting me. These papers cite financial fraud and breach of marital trust. I'm seeking full restitution of the diverted funds, plus my fair share of all marital assets. The restaurant around us continued its normal evening rhythm, couples celebrating, families enjoying dinner, servers moving efficiently between tables. But at our corner table, 7 years of marriage was officially ending. You can't do this, Grayson whispered. We can work this out. I'll tell Mom she can't move in. I'll pay back the money. With what money? I asked pointedly. You've been living paycheck to paycheck because every extra dollar went to maintaining your mother's facade. You don't have $85,000 lying around, Grayson. And even if you did, the trust is broken. You lied to me for years. I stood up from the table, leaving him sitting there with the evidence of his deception spread before him. The divorce will be finalized in 60 days. I'll be staying at a hotel until then, and I've changed the locks on the house. Your things are packed and in the garage. Noelle, wait, he called out, but I was already walking away. I'd driven separately to the restaurant, another part of my careful planning, so I didn't have to endure an awkward car ride home. As I sat in my car in the parking lot, I felt a mixture of emotions: sadness for the end of my marriage, relief that the truth was finally out, and a surprising sense of empowerment. My phone buzzed almost immediately, text messages from Grayson, pleading for another chance, claiming he could fix everything. Then came the call from Patricia herself, her voice shrill with indignation. "How dare you humiliate my son like this?" she screeched before I could even say hello. "After everything he's done for you, this is how you repay him." "Hello, Patricia," I said calmly. "I assume Grayson filled you in on tonight's dinner conversation." "This is preposterous. Grayson was just being a good son, helping his mother in her time of need. You're being vindictive and cruel." "Actually, Patricia, I'm being a good forensic accountant. And speaking of your time of need, we should discuss your mortgage payments. As your new creditor, I'll be expecting full payment of the outstanding balance, approximately $47,000 within 30 days. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "You can't be serious," she finally sputtered. "I'm absolutely serious. The alternative is foreclosure proceedings, which I'm fully prepared to initiate." "Oh, and Patricia? My name is Noelle, not Ellen. After 3 years of intentionally mispronouncing it, I thought you should finally learn to say it correctly." I hung up the phone and drove to the luxury hotel where I'd been staying for the past 2 weeks. The suite was expensive, but I could afford it now that I wasn't unknowingly subsidizing someone else's lifestyle. The next morning brought a flurry of legal activity. Grayson's attorney contacted mine, seeking to negotiate terms for both the divorce and the debt repayment. Patricia's attorney called to discuss the mortgage situation. My own attorney was practically gleeful. She'd rarely seen such a clear-cut case of financial fraud within a marriage. "Your documentation is flawless," she told me during our meeting. "This is going to be one of the easiest divorces I've ever handled. Your husband has no legal leg to stand on." The financial recovery was swift and satisfying. Grayson was forced to liquidate his retirement accounts and take out a loan against his business to repay the diverted funds. Patricia had to sell her vacation condo to me at fair market value to satisfy the mortgage debt. The irony was delicious. She ended up selling the property she'd been desperately trying to keep to the daughter-in-law she'd been systematically undermining. But the most satisfying outcome was watching their carefully constructed facade crumble. Patricia's friends in the charity circuit quickly learned about her financial difficulties when she was forced to resign from her volunteer positions due to personal circumstances. Grayson faced questions from his business partners about the loan he'd taken out, affecting his company's credit rating and reputation. The divorce was finalized exactly 60 days after that anniversary dinner. I kept the house Grayson couldn't afford to buy me out, so he signed over his share in exchange for me not pursuing additional damages for emotional distress. I also kept Patricia's former vacation condo, which I renovated and now rent out as a luxury short-term rental. The monthly income is approximately what Grayson used to send his mother, which feels like perfect poetic justice. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Grayson at a coffee shop downtown. He looked tired and older, the stress of the past year evident in his appearance. Patricia was with him, looking significantly more subdued than I'd ever seen her. They were arguing in hushed tones about money. Some things never change. "Noelle," Grayson said when he noticed me, using my correct name for once. "How are you?" "I'm excellent, thank you," I replied honestly. "How's the apartment hunting going, Patricia? I heard the family estate sold last month." She glared at me with undisguised hatred. "We're managing just fine, Ellen." I smiled sweetly. "It's Noelle, Patricia, and I'm sure you are managing. After all, you're both so good at making other people's money stretch." As I walked away, I heard Patricia hissing at Grayson about my attitude. Some people never learn. Today, a year after that anniversary dinner, I'm in a better place than I ever imagined possible. My career has flourished. The skills I used to uncover Grayson's deception impressed my firm's partners, leading to a promotion and salary increase. I'm dating someone new, a fellow forensic accountant, who appreciates both my professional skills and my personal strength. Most importantly, I learned to trust my instincts and never again ignore red flags in the name of keeping peace. The vacation condo rental business has become surprisingly lucrative, and I've started investing in additional properties. Every month, when the rental income hits my account, I think about how Grayson and Patricia inadvertently funded my real estate empire. They wanted to use me as their personal ATM. Instead, they taught me the importance of financial independence and careful documentation. I still have the envelope from that anniversary dinner, now empty but kept as a reminder of the night I finally stood up for myself. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else. It's about building yourself up and refusing to be anyone's victim. Grayson and Patricia learned that underestimating a forensic accountant is a very expensive mistake. They thought they were playing chess while I was playing checkers, but it turns out I was playing 4D chess all along. Have you ever discovered financial deception in your relationship? How did you handle it? Share your stories in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you protected yourself. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life tales of standing up for yourself. Remember, the best surprises aren't always the ones people expect to receive.